Nature is often beautiful, but at times it turns into a terrifying force of destruction that no one can control. In one safari park where people came to admire lions, elephants, and giraffes, a nightmare unfolded in minutes. A sudden wildfire sparked by intense heat and dry winds spread faster than anyone could ever imagine. Flames surrounded the park like a fiery cage, trapping both humans and wild animals inside without escape. The sky turned orange, the air filled with smoke, and the roars of frightened beasts echoed in the distance. Tourists who came for a peaceful day suddenly found themselves running for their lives from the inferno. Rangers struggled to guide terrified herds toward safety while the fire kept closing in on every side. The once vibrant landscape was swallowed by smoke, ash, and fire, leaving no path clear for survival. This is the true story of a night when nature's wild beauty turned into a devastating wall of flames. Stay with us to witness how people and animals fought to survive, and do not forget to like and subscribe. 1. The day flames awoke the horizon. The morning began calm, but whispers of heat carried danger across dry grass near the safari park. Flames rose suddenly from the distant ridges, painting the skies with orange streaks that spread fast. Animals in the park grew restless, sensing danger before any siren could echo the warning of fire. The staff at the safari station noticed thick smoke curling above trees, signaling the start of chaos. Each gust of wind carried sparks that leapt across bushes, creating walls of fire impossible to halt. Tourists inside the park looked up in shock as skies darkened with clouds of smoke like nightfall. Children clung to their parents, asking why the air smelled bitter, while panic settled across faces. The wildfire grew in strength, feeding on dry leaves and dead branches that surrounded the park area. Within minutes, flames crept close enough to the gates, making every guard rush for emergency calls. The first alarms were sounded across radios, alerting that the safari was now encircled by a disaster. Firefighters were still miles away, leaving the staff to act quickly before the flames sealed exits shut. The sun disappeared behind smoke, turning the daylight into eerie twilight, haunting every witness. Animals howled, roared, and cried as they sensed their habitat was turning into a furnace of death. The park that once echoed with laughter of tourists now echoed with fear and chaos of survival. Every second mattered as the fire gained ground like a predator closing in on its cornered prey. Heat waves shimmered across pathways, making the air itself burn against the skins of those trapped. The staff gathered water hoses and extinguishers, though tiny against the massive walls of flame. From a distance, the wildfire looked like a serpent of fire tightening around the safari landscape. People prayed as the ground shook with crackles of fire advancing without mercy toward the park. The first chapter of terror had begun, marking a day that no one in the safari park would forget. 2. The race against the flames. As the fire advanced, rescuers inside the park began guiding tourists toward the main exit gates. Vehicles were arranged in lines to evacuate families before fire blocked the main road completely. The crackling flames were faster than wheels, roaring like beasts chasing prey in the wild. Rangers carried megaphones shouting directions to keep panicked visitors from scattering. Smoke made breathing harder, forcing many to cover mouths with clothes soaked in water. The wind turned fierce, tossing sparks across grasslands, making the fire leap unpredictable paths. Giraffes stomped in circles, lions roared, and elephants trumpeted at the sight of approaching fire. Drivers pressed accelerators to lead buses of visitors out, but some routes were already burning. Emergency radios crackled with frantic voices calling for backup trucks and water bombers. Helicopters were requested to fly above the forest, though smoke made visibility almost impossible. Children coughed in the back seats while parents tried calming them with promises of survival. Every passing second made the flames inch closer, reducing distance between fire and humans. Animals pressed against fences, desperate to break free from cages before smoke suffocated them. Staff with courage unlocked enclosures, allowing some wildlife to flee into open, safer regions. Rescuers shielded frightened groups, guiding them step by step through narrow, safe passages. The fire was alive, spreading in circles, making the park feel like an island drowning in flames. Visitors looked back with tears, watching beautiful landscapes turn into seas of burning red. Every shout, every siren, and every cry echoed like a desperate plea for mercy from nature. The evacuation became a battle between speed of humans and speed of firestorms rising high. The race against flames tested courage of both rangers and survivors trapped in the inferno. 3. The sky turned to ashes. Dark clouds of smoke swallowed the blue sky, leaving only a canopy of black above the park. Ash rained down on visitors, coating hair, clothes, and cars like gray snow of destruction. Helpless birds circled in confusion, some falling as the smoke suffocated their fragile lungs. The sun became a red circle, glowing dimly through thick curtains of smoke hanging above. The once vibrant horizon where zebras grazed now looked like the edge of a dying world. Wind carried sparks across long distances, igniting new fires in patches near the safari gates. Rangers looked skyward, fearing no rescue helicopter could safely land in such thick smoke. The air grew unbreathable, choking both animals and people struggling to keep moving fast. Tourists wiped eyes burning with tears caused by smoke while screams filled the atmosphere. The ground turned hot as if walking on coals, making every step a painful test of strength. Firefighters arrived at last but faced walls of fire too wide to fight with ordinary water hoses. Explosions were heard as dry bamboo stands cracked, sending shards flying in burning pieces. The sky resembled a battlefield painted in fire, smoke and ash raining over everything alive. Nature itself seemed to mourn as trees collapsed one after another in fiery explosions. Every living being in the park felt trapped under a roof of fire hanging above their heads. The beauty of the safari was erased, leaving only dark outlines of flames devouring the land. Witnesses realized this was no ordinary fire but a disaster powerful enough to change history. The smoke spread so far it could be seen from nearby towns like a giant shadow of doom. Fear turned into silence as people stared at the apocalyptic sky above the burning safari. The sky that once gave light now gave only ashes, marking the cruelty of the wildfire. 4. Panic among the animals inside the enclosures. Animals sensed fear and chaos as smoke reached deep into their habitats fast. Lions paced along cage fences, growling loudly with eyes glowing bright against the fire's reflection. Elephants trumpeted in distress, swinging trunks wildly to protect calves from choking black air. Zebras stampeded restlessly, circling around and around without direction to escape the fear. Monkeys shrieked loudly, leaping from branches to walls, hoping to find a path away from flames. Birds in aviaries beat their wings, desperately slamming against bars in search of freedom outside. Cheetahs scratched doors, frantically aware that fire meant doom if escape was not given soon. Handlers unlocked cages, trembling but determined to save the lives of animals in their care. Some creatures bolted into the smoke, vanishing, while others froze in terror, unable to move. The harmony of nature, once peaceful, turned into screams, cries and roars, blending with sirens. Children watching from jeeps cried as they saw frightened animals struggle for their survival. Even predators and prey united in fear, forgetting instincts of hunting when faced with fire. The park became a scene of chaos where survival was the only shared instinct among all. Handlers guided elephants to safe clearings, hoping their size could resist the advancing flames. Keepers sprayed water on cages to delay heat, buying time for rescue trucks to arrive quickly. Parrots shrieked above the flames, their colors dimmed by ash as wings struggled through smoke. Rhinos charged at gates, smashing barriers with force born from instinct to escape disaster. Each sound from the animals echoed sorrow that nature itself was under cruel attack of fire. The safari, which once celebrated life, now mirrored a battlefield where innocence was tested. The wildfire turned every corner of the park into a nightmare of animals fighting to live. 5. The struggle of rangers and staff. Rangers became heroes, risking their own lives to save tourists and wildlife trapped in the fire. They shouted directions, guided families and carried children across paths lined with flames. Staff formed chains of buckets, pouring water where hoses could not reach the burning grass. Their uniforms soaked in sweat and ash, they pushed on despite choking smoke surrounding them. One ranger lifted an unconscious tourist onto his shoulders, running through thick gray smoke. Another climbed fences to cut open a gate where trapped zebras cried out for mercy and help. Park staff drove jeeps back and forth, transporting groups of terrified visitors toward safety. Despite danger, they refused to leave behind animals still locked within steel and wooden cages. The courage of rangers shone brighter than fire as they fought with nothing but loyalty and love. Some suffered burns while others collapsed from exhaustion but still refused to stop working. Helmets and gloves were scarce, yet they used wet cloths wrapped on hands to open hot gates. Walkie-talkies carried desperate voices calling for backup trucks and helicopters to arrive soon. Every decision was a gamble, but hesitation meant death for both people and animals together. The sound of coughing filled the air as staff struggled to breathe yet pressed forward unbroken. Even in chaos, they stood like shields, protecting families until they reached safer ground. When fire leapt across pathways, they used vehicles as barricades to block flames from spreading. Some rangers vanished into smoke, rescuing animals never to be seen again in the chaos. Visitors witnessed bravery so raw that many wept, calling them saviors of that burning park. Though the fire showed no mercy, the rangers' courage proved stronger than fear that night. The struggle of the staff became the reason hundreds found life within walls of fire. 6. The desperate escape routes. With flames encircling the safari, every road became narrow and deadly for escaping crowds. The main exit was blocked by fire, forcing drivers to search side paths hidden in dry grass. Jeep engines roared as rangers guided convoys through dirt tracks away from burning areas. Tourists screamed when sparks fell on car roofs as drivers swerved to avoid collapsing trees. Each second mattered, for roads were turning into tunnels of smoke and heat impossible to cross. Elephants led groups stamping paths through bushes, creating escape corridors for others. Some vehicles stalled in panic, forcing rescuers to push them out before fire swallowed all. Families held children tight, whispering prayers as every turn revealed more walls of flames. Wildlife fled alongside jeeps, lions and zebras running shoulder to shoulder with humans. Helicopters above dropped water, but most missed targets due to thick smoke blinding pilots. Rangers signaled vehicles with torches, leading them to hidden gates barely known by tourists. The fire advanced from behind, creating a storm of heat, chasing jeeps like hunters in pursuit. Engines overheated from ash clogging filters, but still drivers pushed toward patches of safety. The desperate escape became a journey of hope through a labyrinth designed by fire itself. Those at the back cried for speed as flames grew closer, while drivers risked overturning cars. Survivors looked back one last time, watching their beloved safari turn into a sea of death. The escape was not just a ride, but a test of courage, faith and unity under fire's shadow. Every meter forward felt like victory, every second alive felt like a miracle in burning chaos. Some prayed, others screamed, but all shared the same wish to reach the road beyond the fire. The desperate escape marked the thin line between survival and tragedy in the park. 7. The unseen heroes of rescue. Beyond the rangers, many unseen heroes rose to save lives when fire surrounded the safari. Local villagers rushed, carrying buckets of water and blankets to aid those fleeing the flames. Ambulance crews parked far from fire yet ran into danger to rescue choking and fainted victims. Doctors treated burns using basic supplies while waiting for medical helicopters to land. Volunteers guided terrified children away from smoke, offering water and comfort in chaos. Drivers of trucks opened paths, forcing vehicles forward into safer lands beyond the fire. Firefighters risked collapse, dragging heavy hoses across fields already burning around them. Helicopter pilots braved smoke, flying dangerously low to drop water where crowds were trapped. Some ordinary tourists turned into saviors, carrying injured animals on their shoulders to safety. A mother shielded her baby under a blanket soaked in water, running until she found safety. Young men from villages carried elderly on carts, pulling them away from the heat of fire. Each act of courage written in that day became proof that humanity shines in darkest hours. The wildfire united strangers, transforming fear into strength and kindness amid destruction. Some heroes vanished into smoke, never returning, but remembered as warriors of compassion. Every person who stood against fire became part of a story greater than fear or despair. Even as fire spread, their will to save others grew stronger, refusing to bow to disaster. The unseen heroes gave the safari park hope that even flames cannot erase human courage. Their sacrifices left scars on the land, but also memories of unity in face of impossible odds. Without them, the safari might have turned into a graveyard of silence beneath the ashes. The rescue effort showed that courage is not rare, it lives in ordinary hearts during crisis. 8. The collapse of nature's fortress. The safari once stood as a fortress of nature, filled with rivers, trees and endless greenery. But the wildfire attacked every corner, leaving no tree, no leaf and no grassland untouched. Tall acacia trees that sheltered giraffes burned like torches, falling with thunderous crashes. Rivers boiled at the edges, sending steam clouds rising like ghosts above the burning plains. Bushes that once had playful cubs turned to black stumps covered in glowing embers. Every natural wall that protected the park collapsed under relentless fury of spreading fire. The fortress of nature turned fragile, crumbling before the might of an unstoppable inferno. Bird nests disappeared in flames, while burrows filled with smoke suffocating hidden life. Animals that once roamed freely found no refuge as every tree was swallowed by fire's teeth. Even the ground cracked open, releasing sparks as roots burned deep below the surface. Grasslands where zebras ran became fields of ash, silent except for crackles of burning wood. The proud landscape that drew tourists from around the world was erased in a single night. Rangers wept, watching their beloved sanctuary collapse like a castle built on fragile sand. The fortress, once alive with music of nature, now screamed with pain of fire consuming it all. Elephants trumpeted in grief, standing near rivers that once cooled them, now lined with ash. The collapse of nature's fortress proved that even strongest ecosystems can fall to fire. Survivors realized how fragile beauty is when faced with destruction too great to resist. Each tree lost was a memory erased, each animal gone was a song silenced by heat. The park no longer looked like a paradise but a battlefield where nature itself had lost. The wildfire's cruelty was written in ruins of what was once a fortress of wildlife. 9. The long night of fear. As the sun set, the wildfire showed no mercy, burning brighter against the blanket of night. Darkness mixed with flames created a terrifying glow across the horizon, circling the safari. Survivors outside the gate sat together, listening to explosions of collapsing burning trees. Every sound carried fear as sparks fell from sky like shooting stars turned into weapons. Children clung to mothers, whispering if dawn would ever arrive or if fire would last forever. The night became longer than time itself, stretching moments of fear into endless suffering. Rangers patrolled outskirts with flashlights, scanning for survivors still trapped in smoke. Ambulance sirens wailed, carrying injured through roads glowing red with sparks from above. The wind roared like a monster, feeding the fire with new strength in the heart of night. Families prayed under the stars, though most were hidden behind thick walls of choking smoke. Animals outside the park ran across open fields, silhouetted against the wall of fire behind. The long night forced survivors to endure hunger, thirst, and grief beneath burning skies. Rescue teams worked without rest, carrying bodies of fainted victims to safety tents. Firefighters collapsed but stood again, pouring water like soldiers fighting an endless battle. The flames showed no weakness, their glow painting the night with rivers of molten gold. For many, the night felt eternal, as if darkness and fire had swallowed the world whole. The long night left scars in every mind, scars of fear that would last for many lifetimes. Some cried, some remained silent, but all prayed for dawn to break with hope of survival. The park became a glowing circle of doom, reminding humanity of nature's fierce power. The night of fear became a chapter carved forever in memories of those who lived it. 10. The dawn after the flames. At last dawn arrived, revealing ruins where the safari park once stood in beauty and pride. The sun rose weakly over smoke that still curled from trees, now nothing more than stumps. Survivors stood silent, seeing their paradise reduced to ashes spread across endless land. Animals that survived wandered aimlessly, confused by loss of homes they once belonged to. Elephants coated in ash walked slowly across black fields, searching for water and rest. Rangers wept at the sight of burned cages where animals once roared with strength and life. The air smelled of death, mixing burnt wood with sorrow of lives lost in the firestorm. Helicopters circled above, dropping last showers of water to kill flames still alive in ruins. Families hugged each other, grateful to be alive but mourned for beauty that was forever lost. Volunteers gathered bodies of animals that had not survived the cruel night of fire. Children asked why the world turned cruel to creatures that never harmed anyone at all. Reporters arrived, capturing images of ruins, telling stories of survival and tragedy combined. The safari looked like a graveyard, yet hope still flickered in eyes of those who survived. Plans for rebuilding began even as smoke still rose, for humanity refused to surrender. 11. The scars left on the land. The wildfire carved scars across the safari, leaving blackened earth where green once thrived. Cracked soil stretched endlessly, showing wounds of nature that bled smoke into the sky. Trees that stood tall for centuries lay fallen like soldiers defeated in an unfair battle. Hillsides glowed with ember veins, marking the land with fiery tattoos of destruction. The riverbanks, once shaded with trees, became barren pathways lined with charred stones. Ash replaced flowers, making the landscape look like a cemetery covered in gray dust. Every footprint of animals was erased, replaced by burned trails and collapsed burrows. The grassland that echoed with life became silent under the blanket of destruction. Vultures circled above the ruins, waiting for remains left behind by the inferno. Nature's scars stood as reminders that fire had touched every living soul of the park. Survivors walking the ruins wept at the sight of endless black stretching horizon to horizon. Tourists who once photographed beauty now held cameras, capturing sorrowful ruins. Animals wandered aimlessly over land that no longer offered food or shade to survive. Even the wind carried sadness, whispering across ruins that once sang with bird calls. 12. The survivors' silent grief. Those who survived carried grief heavier than ash, covering the ruins of the safari. Families who escaped with children still cried, remembering the fear of the flames. Rangers walked quietly through ruins, counting losses with broken hearts and tired eyes. Handlers mourned animals that trusted them yet could not be saved from the fire. Children wept, asking why innocent creatures had to suffer in such cruel disaster. Survivors stood in silence because words failed before the sight of destruction. Some prayed for the souls of animals that perished as if they were family lost. Mothers embraced their little ones, whispering gratitude yet mourning the tragedy. The silence of grief weighed heavier than the roar of flames that had passed. Every tear shed became a testament to the love humans held for nature's beauty. Volunteers sat together holding hands staring at ruins unable to stop the pain inside. The grief was silent but louder than words echoing across the ruins of safari ground. Survivors promised never to forget that night when nature's paradise burned alive. Even tourists who had come for joy now felt bonded by sorrow and tragedy alike. 13. The global cry for help. News of the wildfire spread beyond borders, reaching screens around the entire world. Reporters captured images of ruins showing animals coated in ash searching for life. Global audiences wept as they watched flames devour a sanctuary of innocent creatures. Donations poured in from nations promising aid to rebuild the safari park from ashes. Celebrities spoke publicly urging fans to contribute for rescue and restoration efforts. Environmental groups cried out demanding stronger protection against future fires. The wildfire became a global story, sparking debates about climate change and survival. Governments offered supplies, sending tents, food and medicine for injured survivors. Helicopters from neighboring countries joined efforts to drop water on glowing ruins. Scientists called the fire a warning that ecosystems are fragile against growing heat. People across continents lit candles honoring lives of animals lost in the inferno. Letters flooded ranger stations filled with words of support from strangers worldwide. Children donated savings, sending coins in envelopes to help heal the wounded park. The cry for help echoed not only for the safari but for all nature facing fire's threat. 14. The lessons from the flames. The wildfire taught lessons carved deep in minds of survivors and watchers worldwide. Nature's beauty, fragile and fleeting, must be guarded with stronger shields of care. The fire showed that preparation is key for disasters strike without mercy or warning. Rangers vowed to build stronger fire breaks around the safari to prevent future ruin. Communities realized unity is the strongest weapon against disasters of this scale. The tragedy warned against neglecting dry seasons that feed wildfires across lands. Scientists urged planting fire-resistant trees to create barriers around fragile habitats. Every survivor learned life is precious and fragile when tested by fury of wildfires. Lessons echoed in classrooms where teachers told children about courage and fire. Governments promised to improve response times with faster firefighting strategies. The fire reminded humanity that climate change fuels disasters threatening ecosystems. People learned courage is found in ordinary hearts when survival depends on unity. The flames became teachers writing lessons in ash across ruins of the safari. Each scar on land carried a message that nature demands respect and protection. 15. The pain of lost wildlife. The most painful scars were not the burnt trees but the animals lost to cruel flames. Lions, once proud kings of grassland, lay silent, their roars gone from the safari forever. Birds vanished from skies, leaving silence where songs once filled morning air. Monkeys that swung freely from trees perished when flames devoured their homes. Giraffes collapsed, unable to outrun fire that raced faster than their long strides. The loss of cubs hidden in dens broke hearts of rangers who could not save them. Parrots, colorful and bright, turned to silence as smoke claimed their fragile lungs. The smell of burned fur lingered across ruins, haunting survivors with endless grief. Families cried watching handlers bury remains of creatures they once admired alive. The pain of lost wildlife was heavier than ruins because lives could never return. Every name on list of lost animals became a wound on hearts of those who cared. Tourists remembered playful cubs and gentle elephants now gone forever from view. The safari no longer echoed with harmony but with emptiness left by silent deaths. 16. The triumph of survival. Yet amid sorrow some animals survived, proving strength even fire could not defeat. Elephants gathered in groups shielding calves until flames finally passed them by. Lions guided cubs through narrow gaps, surviving where many believed none could. Birds with strong wings flew far, carrying hope of return when the park healed again. Some zebras outran firestorms, galloping across rivers to find life in distant plains. Handlers cried tears of joy when they found monkeys alive clinging to branches. Every survivor became a beacon of hope, proving nature still had fight within. Tourists cheered when they saw giraffes emerge from smoke, walking slowly but alive. Each animal saved was victory, shining like light amid the darkness of destruction. Rangers documented survivors, promising care until new habitats were built again. The triumph of survival reminded all that even flames cannot erase life completely. Every breath taken by surviving creatures was proof of nature's resilience. Children smiled through tears when they fed rescued elephants water from buckets. Volunteers built shelters using wood to house survivors, safe from hunger and rain. 17. The beginning of rebuilding. When the final embers cooled and smoke drifted away into the horizon, the Rangers stood silently upon the blackened earth, vowing that this place would breathe again with life and beauty. Shovels struck the ash-covered ground as survivors and volunteers worked together to plant seeds of hope, each tiny sprout becoming a symbol of defiance against the destruction. Engineers and planners arrived with blueprints, determined to design stronger shelters, safer enclosures, and fire breaks wide enough to shield the land from future disasters. Villagers carried buckets of water while children carried saplings, their little hands trembling with both exhaustion and determination to bring green back to gray. The rebuilding was not merely construction, it was an act of love, a promise whispered into the wounded soil, that the safari would rise again, stronger than before. Day by day, the ruins of broken fences, collapsed trees, and charred paths were replaced with signs of resilience. With every nail hammered and every seed planted, breathing hope. 18. The strength of community. The flames had tried to divide and destroy, but instead they united the community into an unbreakable family bound by compassion, strength, and shared grief. Villagers, rangers, students, and strangers who had once walked the park as tourists now worked side by side, laying bricks, planting trees, and building fences together. Farmers donated crops to feed the surviving animals, while doctors offered their skills freely, treating both injured humans and wildlife with equal tenderness. Children carried buckets of water to nourish the young trees, their laughter mixing with the rustle of leaves, proof that even innocence could rebuild a shattered land. Elders told stories of survival by the firelight, reminding everyone that unity is the weapon stronger than any wildfire that tries to break the human spirit. Festivals were organized, not to celebrate, but to raise funds and morale, turning grief into songs of hope, and sorrow into dances of resilience. Even strangers from distant lands contributed, sending money, tools, and letters of encouragement, proving that compassion knows no boundaries. The community grew stronger with every sunrise, proving that together they were capable of turning ruins into gardens and despair into triumph. Where flames once devoured the land, now hands joined together to rebuild, showing that hope is born not from individuals, but from unity that never breaks. The strength of the community became the backbone of the safari's recovery, a force more powerful than the wildfire that once tried to erase it. 19. The memory that will never fade. No matter how tall the new trees grow, no matter how green the grass returns, the memory of that night when the safari was surrounded by fire will never fade from the hearts of survivors. Rangers will always remember the cries of animals echoing in the darkness, the roaring of flames devouring their beloved sanctuary, and the endless battle fought against despair. Families will forever recall the fear etched in their children's eyes, the coughing smoke that burned their lungs, the fragile moments when survival seemed impossible. Tourists will carry memories of jeeps racing through tunnels of smoke, of strangers turning into heroes. Prayers whispered against the deafening crackle of flames. The land itself holds the memory, with scars etched into the soil, ashes buried beneath roots, and winds that still whisper the story of that fiery night. Memorial stones were erected to honor the animals, rangers, and volunteers who were lost, turning sorrow into remembrance and grief into eternal respect. Every anniversary, survivors gather with candles and flowers, their silence more powerful than any speech, a silence that says, "We remember, we will never forget." The memory is not only of loss but also of courage, a reminder that even when surrounded by destruction it will be told to future generations as a story of tragedy, but also of strength, a lesson written in fire and ash to remind the world of nature's fragility. The memory of the wildfire will never fade, for it has become part of the soul of the safari, living in every tree, every animal, and every heart that still beats there. 20. The hope that rises from ashes. And yet, from the very same ashes that once buried life, hope rose taller and brighter than the flames that tried to erase it, proving that nothing can silence the will to survive. Green shoots pushed through black soil, stubborn and strong, carrying the promise that life always returns, no matter how deep the scars left behind. Birdsong returned to the skies, timid at first but louder each day, filling the park with music that replaced the silence left by grief. Elephants bathed in rivers once more, lions roared against the wind, and giraffes stretched their necks toward the sun, reclaiming their paradise with grace. Children laughed in joy as they watched rescued animals heal, their eyes sparkling with the belief that beauty can be reborn even after the darkest night. Tourists returned, not just to see wildlife, but to witness a miracle, the rebirth of a land that had risen stronger than fire. Every scarred tree, every rebuilt shelter, and every surviving animal became a testament that hope cannot be burned away. The wildfire had tried to destroy the spirit of the safari, but instead, it created a symbol of resilience that inspired people around the world. Hope rose from ashes not as a whisper but as a roar, reminding humanity that from ruin can grow beauty, from sorrow can bloom strength. The story of the safari no longer ended with tragedy, it ended with triumph, for the hope that rose from ashes became eternal. The wildfire that surrounded a safari park proved how quickly peace can turn into unstoppable chaos. What began as an ordinary day became a desperate fight where humans and animals struggled side by side. Some creatures escaped, some were rescued, and some were tragically lost to the burning sea of flames. The park was scarred forever, but it also stood as a reminder of the resilience of life under fire. Rain and brave firefighting finally ended the blaze, but its story continues to echo through memory. It showed the world that nature's power can never be underestimated or ignored for even a second. We must learn to respect the environment before such disasters grow stronger and strike again. If you found this story powerful, make sure to hit like and subscribe for more true nature tales. Share your thoughts in the comments because your voice adds meaning to these untold experiences. Thank you for watching, and remember, nature can inspire us, but it can also test us beyond imagination.